Who's your emergency contact? Who should you notify in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. Now, the story I want to share with you today is about, when you join an organization, you're going to be at the bottom of the totem pole. And the guy at the top, they dictate your time, how you do it, when to do it, and all the rest. We got to Victorville in about 2004, and about maybe late 2004, my cellie and I, Kojo, used to be from the Black Liberation Army. He was an old school. He was the head security for the Muslim. Him and I were cellie together. We organized a laydown because of all the bullshit that was going down in Victorville. And the laydown was successful. We got all the demands that we request, all the requests met, because the things that we were requesting for wasn't out of bounds or anything like that. It was just the warden at the time. He was just on some bullshit and was just, trying to drag us. So we successfully organized a lockdown. We were locked down for about 4 to 5 months. But, after the lockdown, they came and started rounding people up. And during the roundup, they picked up a few handful of people, and I was one of the people that they picked up. And I ended up going to the SHU for 4 to 5 months. Sometimes it seems longer, but at the time in Victorville, they had this program, a step-down program, which means that you go to the SHU, then after the SHU, you go to the step-down program to be able to work your way back onto the compound. So needless to say, it took me a minute to get back onto the yard. So around early 2005, I got back on the yard right before basketball season. And when I say basketball season, I mean like the penitentiary basketball season. Now, if anybody's been in Victorville or know where Victorville is, it's 3 hours from Vegas. And the weather is just like Vegas. When you come out of the unit, you're in a freaking oven. As soon as you step out, that heat hits you in the face, makes you want to freaking pass out, right? So during my time in Victorville, I pretty much stayed inside. I ran a poker table, in my unit. So I didn't do too much yard out there. The only time I come out in the yard is at the first yard move. Around 7 o'clock, 7 a.m. It's not too bad. I'll go out there, play handball for a few hours, and come back into the block. After lunch, you're not going to see me on the yard. If I do anything, I'll go into the gym. In Victorville, they got an indoor basketball gym. Now, I know it might not look like it now, but back in the days, I used to build a ball. And I used to be one of the only ones that weren't black, outside of a few natives, that was able to play with the blacks. Like we have basketball courts on the yard, but like I said, after lunch, that shit is scorching hot. So anybody that balls, they all end up in indoor gym. And if you're not gonna get picked up to be on a team, you're just wasting your time going to the gym, because there's only one court and it's 5-on-5. Winner keeps the court. Losers gotta cycle through. And when you go there, first one there puts their team together, then whoever calls next, and so on and so forth. So when you're going over there, like I said, if you don't got the skills to play, because they're competitive, they're out there, they're balling, and if you don't know how to ball, or if they don't think you know how to ball, you're just gonna be sitting on the sideline. But I'm able to go to the gym, get picked up, get on the team, run for an hour or so, whenever I go down there. So at this time, around early 2005, I get out of the SHU, and they're about to start the basketball league. So when I get out, Clumsy hits me up. He was putting a team together. It's all his homeboys. They're all Southsiders, Mexicans. And there was a couple of them that can ball, and the other, 2 or 3 homies that they had on a team were just pretty much like filler, but they needed a point guard. and he knows I can ball. So when I came out, he's like, "Hey man, I need a point guard. Why don't you come and play for me?" But I had a couple other offers, with the black teams, with the blood, my homie Chucky Brim, and then they had a blood team, and he wanted me to ball with them, but Clumsy outbidded them. And he came up, he's like, "Hey man, come play with me. I'll sprinkle you." You know, I met Clumsy back in 2001. He lived in C Block when we was in Lompoc, and I lived in like M Block, K Block, and before I left, I was in F Block. So C Block is right across from F Block. But, we see each other on the yard. We do business and everything. I know him pretty well. We didn't kick it or anything. But when we got to Victorville, we ended up being in the same block. So we kicked it more. And Clumsy got money. He's a hustler. Whatever it is that he does, he's bringing in shit. He's moving stuff around the yard. He's a player on the compound. Now, before I get into that story, I want to emphasize that the Black Hand, they're the big homies for the Sureños. And they get a third of everything that comes on the yard. They get a third of everything that their homie does. Whether you're running a poker table, whether you're selling wine, if you're hustling, the big homies get a percentage of that. The only thing that I don't think they get is if it's like money that are sent from home from your family. But anything that you're doing on the yard, any move that you're making to make money, you got to break them off. You know, that's that comes with the job description for them. So going back to Clumsy, he hustled. He brings in meth. That's when we had the conversation about me joining the team. He's like, "Hey man, I hit every other week. My family come and see me, this and that, and you fuck with me, play on my team, I'll sprinkle you." I was like, "Shit." For me, as far as like drug of choice back in the days, meth was it. And I was like, "Fuck it, yeah, I'll play for you." And I ended up playing for his team. I don't think we won any games through the course of the season, but we were competitive for the most part. But like again, it's inside prison system when it comes to sports and stuff, especially back like with softball, every race has the opportunity to win. It's competitive. But when it comes to basketball, the blacks dominate that sport. I don't care what anybody else says, right? So, and every time he hits, he come over my cell and be like, "Hey man, this is you," and chip me off. When it comes to that organization, their big homie gets a third of it. And it's better that you are upfront and honest about what you're doing because there's no secrets in the penitentiary. If you're hustling and you're not trying to break off the big homie and they find out you're hustling and they're not getting their issue, that could literally cost you your life. So on this particular day, they call the yard move. And I always step out. Every time they call a yard move, I always step out of my unit, to meet who I'm going to meet, to make the moves I'm going to make or whatever. I just stay right there in front of the block, to do what I do. So on this particular day, I'm in front of the unit. I live in 2A and Gato lives in 2B. Now Gato, I just want to make a correction. I had a mistake. I thought Gato was the dude that used to be TS that became a Black Hand and that caused the war between the TS and the Black Hand. But one of my homeboys corrected me that it was a different Gato. And that Gato, he's already moved on and passed away. But the Gato that I'm speaking of today is the same Gato that got killed by the MS-13 in 2017. When we were in Victorville, Gato had went home, but he was gone for like 6 months and came back with a new indictment. When you're a part of these organizations, it's for life. There's no retirement, right? So when you go home, unless you're the founder of it, the big dog, somebody's always going to be higher up than you to give you order, to give you territory, and the rest. But as you know, if you're running in the streets, when you have such a big organization like that, it's hard to make sure that everybody is solid because not everybody wants to do that time. I want to emphasize that. Not everybody is willing to do the time. And you get a group of RICO and indictment, guaranteed somebody's going to tell. And they don't have to necessarily be at the bottom of the totem pole pyramid. Sometimes the guy at the top of the indictment is the one that's telling on the rest. But when it gets big like that, there's more room for dudes to not hold their water. So Gato, I went home. 6 months later, he was back on the compound. So at this time, like I said, Clumsy's hitting. He comes in. Every time he hits, he chips me off. And on this particular day, I go out on the move. I'm in front of my block. Gato live in 2B, right across from us. So Clumsy and Gato is about 10 feet away from me. And I apologize if I shared this story already before or mentioned it before. But anyway, so I'm on a walk. I'm in a conversation with somebody because I'm doing what I'm doing. And I see Clumsy. He's about 10, 15 feet away from me talking to Gato. So Clumsy drops something in Gato's hand. And Gato looks at him and he's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? And as far as Clumsy goes, he can't say nothing. He's just doing his part, giving the big homie his issue. Like I said, this is not an option. It's mandatory. So if you get, like I say again, if you get caught hustling and you don't break them off, that could cost you your life. So Clumsy's out there. He's giving Gato his issue. And Gato looks at it and he's like, man, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? I don't fuck with this shit. Matter of fact, you're not bringing this stuff in here no more. The next time you go out there, I'm going to have something for you. Again, there's nothing that Clumsy can say or do. Clumsy put his head down, goes back into the unit. And Gato looks up and he sees me on the wall. He's like, hey, Mesa. I was like, what's up, big homie? He's like, you fuck with this shit? I said, a little bit. He goes, can you do something for me? I'm like, yeah. I said, what we talking about? Now, at that time, a gram, whether it's meth or heroin, was going for about $300, $350, right? But the grams, they're not street grams. People would take 2 grams and turn it into 3 prison grams and sell that each for $350, $300, or whatever. So he looks at me. He's like, well, this is what I want. And the price that he gave me was about half price of what it would have went, on the yard. And I'm like, shit, yeah, let me get that. But, I always find myself in situations like that because I fuck with a lot of people and sometimes they look out for me. When they hit, they're like, hey, man, I got this for you. If you can send me this, if you can do this, commissary money, whatever. And even if I don't have it at the time, even if I don't have the money at the time, I know what my resources are, and I've never told anybody that I can do something and never fulfill it. So that's why when it comes to hustling, when it comes to things like that, I've always been able to get things on consignment, on just my face and my word alone. They'll drop it in my hand. I go about my business and I take care of them when I tell them I'm gonna take care of them. Me and Gato, we was in M block together in Lompoc, and we was in F block together in Lompoc. And when we moved to Victorville, we already knew each other. And I've already done business with them, multiple times. He knows I'm good for whatever. So he comes and drops the 2 grams in my hand. We agree on the price, and we move on with our life. Now, when I get into the block, I look at it because I didn't want to be disrespectful to the big home and be like, oh, let me see what it looked like. The price that he's giving me was already kosher. But also, I know that's his issue that's coming from Clumsy. So Clumsy's not going to short him. If Clumsy tells him it's 2 grams, it's 2 grams. So when I go into the block, go in my cell, and I open it up. I look at it, and I'm like, damn, these are like 2 full grams, not jailhouse grams. So I came up, right? But when I come into the block, Clumsy comes up into my cell. Like I said, me and him, we fought with each other. I don't want to say that we're homies, but we was cool. You know what I mean? We've had a lot of business dealings through the time that we were together, and everything, everything that I know about the homie has always been good, man. There's nothing, no mark on his character or anything. So he comes in, and he's in my cell. He's like, man, I can't do it, man. I'm pretending I didn't hear what was going on. It's like, what's up? He goes, man, Gato wants me to bring in that fucking shit. I don't fuck with that shit, man. And from as far as Clumsy is concerned, he's terrified of that. He's never done it. He's got family members that's OD'd on it. When we were in Victorville, there's plenty of people that OD'd on it. He's had a lot of homies that died from it. So he stayed away from it. And meth was his thing. And he didn't fuck with the heroin. He didn't sniff it. He didn't shoot it up. I don't even think he even really sold it. He didn't have anything to do with that shit, right? Now, his concern is, when you go out to the vision room and you swallow a balloon, if you're swallowing a balloon of weed or a balloon of meth, and that shit somehow busting you, you're just gonna be high. If it's weed, you're gonna be high. If it's meth, you might be up for a week, but you're not gonna die. But heroin, if that balloon busts in your pocket, in your stomach, and they don't get to you in time where they're pumping your freaking stomach and getting that shit out, you're gonna die. Especially if you don't do it. If your system is clean and you've never done heroin, a match head is literally the size of a match head. When I first hit the prison, a match head was going for $25, and then later on in Victorville, you couldn't get nothing for $50 for less than $50. But if you don't do heroin, the size of a match head could kill you. And Clumsy, from what he's told me, he's never touched the stuff. And I just told you the reason why. He's had plenty of family members and friends that have OD'd on that shit. So he's scared of it. And he's like, man, he's asking me, like, what should he do? Because he doesn't want to risk his life going out to the vision room, swallowing that shit. And for my part, when it comes to a situation like this, I don't have anything to say. I can't tell him what to do or what to do or what not to do. It ain't got nothing to do with me. That's between him and his people. But I know one thing though, if he doesn't do it, that could mean his life. When it comes to people in these different organizations, and I'm just gonna paint a broad brush, right? From from the position that I've been, I was nominated by the homies to represent us, but I'm not their big homie. I'm just a spokesman, the guy that deals with all the stuff, with all the politics. But when it comes to these organizations, they're the big homie. It's official, stamped. Like they're the leader of the gang, they're the leader of the yard, and what they say is law. There's no exception. But also, I just want to say that through the course of my time, I've seen that, when it comes to these big organizations where they have thousands and thousands of soldiers, when you're at the bottom of the pyramid, you're replaceable. You're just a dime a dozen. And they don't really, from my perspective, don't really, for lack of a better word, care for your well-being. When your number comes up, regardless if you're going home tomorrow, regardless if you got a life sentence, when your number comes up and they send you on a mission, you got to go. And if you don't go, then you become the mission. Somebody had commented that their politics has, through the course of time, got a lot of good people knocked off. And that's facts. You know, when you're in there in an environment like this, there's a lot of things at play, whether it's jealousy, envy, ego, power trip, whatever it is. Sometimes they plot on each other and they get good dudes knocked off for whatever reason. You know, it's a it's a very cutthroat business. Now, when it comes to this particular group that I'm speaking of, the black hand is law. What they say goes. You know, I've witnessed where I sat in a room and we're bumping a stereo system when we was in Lompoc, and this dude, Perico, he had a black hand. He came through, stuck his head in the cell, was listening to the system, and tells the dude, hey, I'm going to the yard. When I come back, make sure that system is hooked up in my room. An hour later, when Perico came back off the yard, that brand new system was hooked up in his room. There's no. You can't never refuse a mission. You can't refuse, period. You know, so for the youngsters out there, you're thinking about signing up, man, you think it's cool out here and all the rest. Man, when you get into that system, there's a hierarchy. And if you're not at the top, you know, you're just a torpedo, getting ready, waiting in line to get sent on a mission. So a couple weeks later, Clumsy is going out to these visits. And he doesn't come back. You know I mentioned, like, you know, if you check in from a yard or whatever, you're this and that. And 99% of it, I stand on. But just like somebody comment, sometimes politics get good dudes fucked off. You know, everything I know about Clumsy leading up to this was 100. You know, the way he did business, the way he conducted himself, just on a personal level, he was a good dude. But he was put in a position where he was going to risk his life to bring in some dough. And the fact that he never came back, you know, he had to make a conscious decision. And he was just like, man, this ain't worth my life. You know, like I said, if that stuff busts inside your gut and they don't get to you in time, you're good as dead, man. And for me, I've seen a lot of things like that happen throughout the course of my time. You know, I don't really speak on it because I don't know the facts leading up to it or whatever. I hear rumors and stuff, but I don't really speak on rumors at all. But on this particular incident, you know, I had the conversation with homeboy, and I knew the scenario and I knew the situation. And you know, I don't know what I would have done in that situation. I'm grateful that I've never had to be under somebody that was supposed to be my big homie and all the rest. You know, but you know, when you enter and join some of these groups, man, sometimes you don't realize what you're signing up for. And as far as Clumsy's situation, he been a soldier. You know, he been 100. He been doing everything that he was supposed to do. He was in good standing. But he was put in a situation where, you know, he was going to risk his life. And all the conversations that I would have with him, man, he never touched this stuff. And he was terrified of it. And the fact that he never came back, you know, he made a conscious decision. Now, once he does that, it follows him. Because now they're going to tell him that he's a dropout. And they X'd him out. So I don't know where he went after that, but I know the system. I know he could never be put back on a yard with any of his homeboys, because when you disobey a direct order, they're gonna put a green light on you, and they don't have to justify it. They don't have to give you a reason why. They just know there's a green light on this dude, So when he hits a compound with other homies, because anybody can get on the BOP and look where you're being housed at. You know, you can look at anybody right now that you know is locked up on a BOP, and they'll tell you what yard they're on. So there's no hiding. So if they put him on a yard with other Sureños, he's gonna get butchered. He's axed out. So the logical conclusion is that when he left Victorville, he went to a non-active yard. And like I said, you know, every interaction I've had with dude was good, man. And it's disappointing that the politics, you know, end up the way it was. But like I said, when you join these organizations, you know, nothing like me. I'm just from a street gang out here. You know, when you join these organizations, there's a hierarchy, and the guy at the top is the leader, is the boss. His word is law, and they want their issue. And if you don't give them their issue, you become a body. Welcome to the USP.